Yeah. I'm here to interrupt that beautiful statement with a bunch of words. Welcome to First Parish. It's our last official Sunday of the year. We're back in August for like a full run, but July, you're on your own, at least in terms of Sundays. So, and we'll be back in August with new ideas and with board retreats and a chance to kind of revitalize what we're doing for the year and get excited about all that. But that's a long way away. I'm going to go right into the chalice words, which come from Martha Capo. I want to just take a moment to thank Linda, who jumps in all the time, right? Pete jumps in as a reader. Linda jumps in to plan and kind of kick my butt into shape and whatnot. And Stephanie up there. Stephanie, stand up. Stephanie is, the two of them do so much work behind the scenes and just step in. It's really just very impressive. Makes all of our lives easier. So, Martha Kirby, I'm Steve Wilson, for those who are new. I'm the minister as of 2 years and been fooling them so far. So Martha Kirby Capo says, "Let this purest of flames kindle in our hearts a pledge to justice, a commitment to freedom, and a reverent awe for the crystalline glories that sparkle along our footpaths." Nice words. A reverent awe for the crystalline glories that sparkle along our footpath. In an imperfect world, we need to take that stuff in. What I'm about to say could sound very colonialistic, very patronizing. It might, perhaps so, because it is. I just wondered if I'm alone at one point in my life seeing something that prompted me to say, I'm going to go to Africa and find some way to help. And then never doing it. Does that sound about right? Anybody else ever done that? Seen something, Live Aid, watched some famine, Me too. If you got a big heart and you're moved by any level of deprivation, it's archetypal for types like us to want to go alleviate that suffering, particularly if it involves a sort of a sense of adventure overseas, and we should want to. But today we have some of our own, the Hardys, who have done that. Good for them. Trips to Africa can feel like missions. They can get a bad rap, but seemingly with the Hardy family here, it's not the Bible in one hand and bread in the other. It's not, we'll feed you and educate you if you join our religion. As we're about to hear in what amounts to our sermon section today, all that's offered by them is kind of an internet connection to the world, an education, and some freedom. And today the family that describes themselves as the Hardy Bunch are going to tell us about the complexities of the simple act of getting technologies into the hands of people, not intentionally, not by any hippie sense of independence, off the grid. They're off the grid because they're just off the grid. I'm going to stay out of the way of that part. As you might be an experienced you realize this is also flower communion, and that's right, and we're going to get to all of that. Linda's going to lead us off with a hymn number 153, This Is My Song, 153. It follows 152 if you're bad at math. 159, I mean, sorry. I guess I'm bad at math. This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and nigh. That hymn just kills me. Let's find a still spot in our hearts to just be, quiet place to just be with yourself. In this room of like-hearted folks, mostly. Nicole McKay says, "We gather to remember those who could not grow old and those forced to grow old long before their time. We gather to mourn and grieve with one another all our losses, the people, the stories, the loved ones, and the futures that could have been." I'm sure you have people in mind. We gather to mourn and grieve with one another all our losses. We gather to do the hard work of facing the difficult realities of our present and our past, where there is conflict, violence, war, and hatred. We gather to hold space for silence as we try to make meaning of our history, to help us work for peace and justice in our time. We gather to rekindle our source of hope for the future by recognizing in one another our shared humanity as we join in a concerted commitment for a better tomorrow. We gather here because we need community to do all of this holy work. Let's just sit in this quiet space built for this very purpose of training ourselves how to live and learning again and again how to be. Amen. And now a little musical response. Play us something. No. Okay. We'll do joys and concerns. Sounds good. So, in our churches, all of us know, we invite a chance for people to come forward and share what's on their hearts, what's living for you, what's relevant in this moment. Not announcements, not political statements, but where you're at. This is our church check-in. So if we come here to cry a little bit, we come here to live. So that's what we do. And there we are. Play something.
318.
318, we would be one.
You'll recognize the hymn.
Yes, 318. Stand as you're willing and or able. We would be one as now we join and sing. It's time for our offertory. And we UUs, as you probably know, are famous for asking questions. Where most churches offer answers, we offer questions. So I got a few. Is it good if a vacuum sucks? If a word is misspelled in the dictionary, how do we know? Why does slow down and slow up mean the same thing? And why does fat chance and slim chance mean the same thing? Why do tugboats mostly push boats? Why do people usually only sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" when they're already there? How do churches have the nerve to call it an offering and then pass the plates around where you politely can't take any? Let's find out. Flower communion, invented by the Copics, who were originally Baptist Catholics, who were in Czechoslovakia. That's where they're from. Maya was there, and so was Norbert, and they both came to the States independently. Families from the same, kind of origin. He came over here and became a Baptist minister. And they were in New Jersey, and they were just think of this. This is probably somewhere around the teens of 1910s. They met at Columbia University in a library. He is significantly older than her, like a decade and a half older than Maya. He went back. They became UUs simply because they were going to. The Czechoslovakia had flipped over, and the end of forced Catholicism had happened. There was a lot of people going back home from their community, and they went back and they started a church. Right? If you've ever been to Prague and you've ever crossed over the King Bridge, the King Cross Bridge, one of the last buildings on the left is the UU church there, okay? And there's a big theater in there, and they share it. And there was a big fight a while back about who controlled that, and it's a long story, but nonetheless. So Norbert and his daughter were back in Prague. They invented the flower communion because they had a lot of different people in the community, a gathered group of people. They had a membership in the thousands in about 10 years, very popular. But they were drawing people from all different kind of communities, and they realized, all they were leaning into were the Christian rituals, and they wanted to come up with their own ritual that honored the diversity of people that wasn't so ritualistic in a Christian sense, and they thought a flower communion was an interesting way to do it. So people now, some people bring a flower, but we've gotten a little lazy in our day here. But people would bring a flower, and they would come home with a different flower honoring the diversity of the community they had. You probably know all this. But so Maya was in the States at the time. Norbert was back there. This is when the Nazi situation was kind of ramping up in the early 40s. Norbert and his daughter were taken into custody for listening to the BBC report. Resonance to things happening today, of course. Their charges of listening to the BBC, which was some small offense for the Nazis who had taken over the Prague, was upped because they knew they were impactful people. They were brought to Dachau, and in about 6 months they were brutally poison gassed and murdered, like millions of other people were. Maya was still in the States. Maya decided she didn't even know until after the war that she lost her daughter and her husband. And she was taking the flower communion kind of up and down the East Coast as a ritual, and we've sort of embraced it as a near closing ceremony in many, if not most, UU churches around the country. So when we celebrate this, and it's the beauty of flowers, and then we just also remember that religious freedom is not to be taken for granted, and nor is freedom of any kind to be taken for granted. So in some orderly fashion, you can choose how I think we can manage this. You come up and find a flower that feels like it calls to you. You can come up to the altar and grab one too. And if somebody feels like they're challenged mobily, we'll bring over flowers to you as well. So that's what flower communion is. So let the chaos begin. Come on up, and Linda will noodle on something over there, and we'll have. So come find a flower, and if people need help getting up here, we'll bring you a flower after other folks. There you go. Thank you, Linda. We're about to hear the story of one family, one nonprofit, doing their part to try to make the world a kinder, safer, smarter place. And I think we'll all be entertained and edified by this effort. The microphone will work.
Yes. Thank you.
There, and I'll get out of the way.
It's so nice to see you all. I'm having flashbacks to, I think the last time I was on this podium was that little play we did. Do you all remember that? That was so silly. Oh, that was funny. Anyway, of course, the first image we have on our slide is the Hardy Bunch, because how and why we're the Hardy Bunch is for most of our parenting, we had 6 children, and then we grew to 7. But we We were never as glamorous as the Brady Bunch, but we felt somewhat akin to the chaos of the Brady Bunch. And so we've always been the Hardy Bunch, and we're so lucky for that. Next slide, please, Stephanie. We have and the next slide too, I'll talk to kind of the connections. So our project name is Tech Bridges to Malawi. That's our project that is in Malawi, where we bring Second Life devices to remote schools in Malawi. And our foundation, US-based foundation, is the Hardy Bunch Foundation, which came to be in 2022. Dow and I were both fortunate enough to be able to retire, and we felt we had been given much more than any one family deserved. And so we created the foundation to fund both global, national, and local work. And we work with an NGO in Malawi called K2 Tasso. So those are our local folks who make all the decisions. That's a very important premise to our project, is that I think your opening was just amazing in terms of how we approach this project is very much what makes sense locally, and they make those decisions. They make all the decisions about the where and the how. We make the decisions of the what, obviously, what can we bring, what can we give. Next slide, Stephanie. So Malawi, I believe on your slide, the star is in the ocean, which is not where Malawi is. I moved the image and forgot to move the star. So Malawi is just a little north of Mozambique. It's a small country that has a lot of very unfortunate attributes to it, being anywhere between the 5th and 7th poorest country on the planet. They have just under 25 million people. Their GDP per capita is $1,500. It's largely subsistence farming. 70% of the nation grows the food that they eat and sells it on the side of the road to buy the things like soap and oils that they may need. And they're at the mercy of weather. There's virtually no irrigation. So without any warning, they have one growing season a year, and it either decides if they're going to have food in their bellies or not. And the reason we found ourselves in Malawi is Tyler here, is sitting here. He's the origin story to Malawi. He had an interest in pursuing a medical career when he was in high school. And there's an amazing local doctor, Dr. Brian Liss, who lives in Hudson, who takes high school students every year for a clinical experience in a developing nation, which is Malawi. And Tyler went as a senior in high school. And he, fast forward now, Tyler is a first-year med student at UMass Chan. So he has, through a lot of perseverance, stayed true to his desire to pursue a medical career. It wasn't easy. He had to apply twice, which is ironic, because how many of you don't have a PCP right now, or took a year and a half to find one? So the system is not made to really solve the problems, unfortunately. So Tyler went as a senior in high school, and I'll never forget finding him in bed. I'm going to get emotional. And he came home from the trip, and he was like, "Why do I want to get up? Like, what am I doing here?" He was so emotional from what he saw in Malawi and what the experience really was. I didn't think I was going to get emotional. So I said, "Well, Tyler, you got to get up and take your AP exams because you're a senior in high school, and you just got to get through this." And do you remember that?
I know that.
You don't? Yeah. Yeah, because he went during April vacation, so he missed, a lot of the final, and had to come home and just boom, he, much against my advice, took 5 AP classes his senior year of high school. So I remember when he got home, I said, "Did you study on the plane?" He's like, "Oh yeah, sure." So, that's what Malawi, when you go, does to you. You come home and you wonder, how are we living our lives? Because what you see is joy. They have so little, but you're surrounded by laughter and joy and living elbow to elbow, sharing the same fire outside of your back stoop to boil your water. And we live such isolated lives. You know, we don't touch each other. We stand in lines and we don't talk to each other. We keep our heads down. So I always said after the first trip, you come home with so much more than your luggage brought. You know, your heart is bursting with joy and respect and admiring of how, and looking at how we live our lives here and looking for ways to improve that. So that's why Malawi. So as a parent of shepherding a child going on this experience, I just expressed an interest to the doctor. I said, do you ever need a chaperone? And he said, well, and he knew my experience was software engineer turned household engineer turned high school educator. And he said, well, I've been looking for someone to bring computers. And I said, well, you found the right person. So the next year, 2017, I went on the trip. I was still working as an educator, so it was a 10-day trip in total, which is a crazy short amount of time to travel to Malawi. And I had 30 laptops in my bag. Yes, I lied when I checked in my luggage and said there was no lithium batteries. And I started bringing computers on April vacation from 2017 to 2022, and just bringing more computers every time. And then in 2022, Dow and I were fortunate enough to be able to retire, and he had always had an interest in getting involved with the project, and so we have taken it on now in full force since 2022. And Dow took his first trip in January of 2023, and now we are both working on it almost as a full-time job against our will. But it's, so that's kind of why Malawi and when, we started. Next slide, Stephanie, thank you. So where we are now, we are currently in 35 schools in one district of Malawi. 4 of them are primary schools and the rest of them are secondary schools. We only give to what are considered CDSSs, Community Day Secondary Schools, which are the least resourced type of school in Malawi. They have a lot of very high-end private schools, that exclude. So this is the public school in Malawi that otherwise have no resources. Every one of our project schools, partner schools, gets 2 projectors, which is it's the main leverage in the classroom. You put a projector in a classroom and it's a huge force multiplier. 19 of our schools are running on lithium solar power, and we're impacting well beyond 14,000 schools, and 1,000 computers are in these schools. Next slide, please. So we leave on July 7th for an epic trip, which is going to be 2 months, and we're delivering just under 600 laptops, and we're adding 16 schools to our project. And that will finish the entire district of Kasungu. So our project will be putting computers in the entire district. We're going to stand back after that and get a little better at what we're doing. And we will have to raise capital if we want to expand to another district. But we're really happy that we are completing this. How do we get our devices? So we intercept the corporate America recycling. I mean, they give everybody a new computer every 3 to 5 years. So we have a few key corporate partners who have been giving us their laptops. And so we get them after their first full life in the United States, and they live a very long, prosperous second life in Malawi. I mean, we still have computers that came in my luggage in 2017 that are still operating. A quick little side note, we started delivering Windows operating system, and we were like, well, this is not sustainable. We didn't have any internet. They were riddled with viruses immediately. So we have started in 2023 in full force bringing a Linux distribution called Zorin, which is free, supported, and the country was not very happy. The Ministry of Education wanted Windows. And we went on a multi-year diplomacy mission, and we've actually gotten the nation's Ministry of Education to accept a Zorin distribution. And we've worked with the National Examination Board to modify the exam so that students can learn on a Linux device and successfully take the exam. So that's a very exciting thing because we've really been able to impact the nation's education system. And it was a lot of fun to do such a diplomatic mission, you know. Next slide, please. So here are some pictures of us doing the solar installs. Many of our schools are not anywhere near a grid, and they will not be in the near future. So when we encounter a school under those circumstances, we install the solar system. We used to do lead-acid batteries that did not work very well and reliably or for long. So we've upgraded now. They get a lithium solar system, which is incredibly. Actually, our solar schools are performing better because the power grid in Malawi is so unreliable. The schools on the power grid have more time without their devices because they have so many interruptions to their power. Next slide, please. So we made an amazing partnership over the past couple of years with an organization that's trying to connect the entire world. It's called unconnected.org, and they are the nonprofit partner of SpaceX. So we now have a Starlink in every one of our schools, so except for the primary schools. So, and we're going to have Starlinks in the 16 that we're adding. So as much as I chagrin the owner of Starlink and SpaceX, it is an amazing piece of technology that is changing the lives of the students at our schools. Next slide, please. So this is a great action shot of our team, which I'm going to get to soon. This is them installing the Starlink on the roof, which brings us to the most important part of our project. Next slide. This is our team. How do we do this? We're only there 20% of the year. This is our local Malawian, born, raised, and educated team. They work full-time supporting our schools. In that group, we have a solar technician, we have a networking technician, we have 3 who have bachelors of science, either in computer engineering, computer science, or IT. We have 2 females. We've done 2 national searches for those females. And the one on your left is, no, the one on the right, is the lead technician. She is incredible. She has a bachelor's of science in computer engineering from Livingstonia University in Malawi, and she is a superwoman, superstar. Next slide, please. 70% of the roads in Malawi are not paved. So imagine what it takes to get to all of these schools. Traveling is precarious, is very, very difficult. So they travel by motorbike, mostly. They care deeply about their safety gear. So we bring them safety gear every trip. This is what traveling in the rainy season looks like to our schools. That is a river crossing the road. Oh, next slide, I'm so sorry. Next slide. There you go. So the person on the left is our technician who has to very carefully check the depth of the water because our vehicle will be ruined if it gets it's got the intake. It's not an off-road vehicle, so the intake can't go underwater. And so they are checking the depth before we crossed. In this case, we were able to cross and proceed to our school, but in rainy season, we take different roads than we do during dry season, and there are some places that we actually have to borrow a vehicle from the Ministry of Education in order to get to this place. Next slide. That is Mtundwala. That is what we had to cross. So we had to borrow a vehicle. Our team went ahead of us on this trip to deliver the solar system and install it, and blew the engine on the vehicle because the water was so deep. So this is a hard reality, and actually what's interesting is this section of our district is where many of our new 16 schools will be They're the most difficult to get to, and it's going to be, the vehicles are becoming an ongoing issue. The need for repairs is often and frequent and expensive. Next slide, please. So Dow and I are spending 20% of our year in Malawi. We'll be there for 2 months coming up, and we were there for half of March and half of April. So we've already been there for a month this year. And we focus on training. So that's a picture of our CPD, Continuous Professional Development. So we spend so much of our time on the trip teaching, giving the teachers the skills and adding to their skill set. It's a lot of amazing work that we do, bringing them all together. Next slide. This is a delivery that we just did, this very remote place in Tundwala. But what I like about this picture is it gives you an idea of the sparse campus. So that is the head teacher and teacher's room block. And there's 3 other buildings kind of in a circle. And that's the campus for over 400 school students. So one group of 100 students, all their freshmen will be in one classroom all at one time. So the teachers are teaching and working in very difficult situations. Next slide. So Dow's bringing on of this program, he was a DevOps, ran a ed tech company, has amazing skills, and this monitoring is really what Dow just has done an amazing job with. And now with Starlink, we can, next slide please. We have a live dashboard. So this morning at 8 o'clock, there were 88 devices across our 35 schools connected. We can see this live anytime. And we're even starting to do software upgrades remotely. We have Dow, you can talk more about Tailscale and things like that. But the technology has just been incredible and giving us incredible visibility. So Dow will be talking to the team, Makuyu's classroom server is down. Why is it down? And they're like, calling Makuyu, and they'll turn their classroom server back on. So very high tech in terms of our visibility and what we're able to see and what we're doing. Next slide, please. And now these are just the fruits of the labor, the most beautiful faces that I've ever seen. So this is a primary school students just enjoying the laptop for the first time. I can't remember if this was our delivery or maybe a follow-up. I think this was a follow-up visit. Next slide, please. This is a computer science lesson. So they're doing little block coding, and I actually got the picture of them being like they're trying to get the little thing to move, turn left, move forward 3 places, turn right, and they're clapping when they solve the puzzle. It's a joy of their first computer science lesson. And in a very primitive classroom. And these are some female students we brought together. Next slide, thank you. We have a scholarship for a young woman, and she is pursuing her nursing degree. And this was bringing the top female students in our cohort together so we could get to know them and spend a day with them. And as a result of that, we offered a scholarship. And now she's starting her 2nd year in nursing. Actually, the winner of the scholarship is not in this picture, but this is that day of bringing them all together. Next slide. This is a powerful picture. Is there anything anybody notices? What stands out in this picture? Did I say next slide? Yeah. A crack in the wall. Exactly. This is a school that has that crack in the wall, and that's the environment where they're learning, and running extension cords 100 feet to get power to that classroom. Next slide. And here are the students. That's the outside of that building. You can see more cracks in the wall, and they're walking with their laptops. with that joy and enthusiasm of being given access to something that they know the rest of the world has had for so long, and it's always been so far away from them. Next slide. Again, the joy of the students seeing the computers for the first time, the energy in the room is palpable. You can feel them holding their breath, looking at what they're taking in, what they're seeing and what they're able to do. Next slide. And I think this is just the most beautiful boy that exists on the planet. He's holding an iPhone. That's a primary school. And watching the lesson on the projector, while he has that iPhone in his hand. And he will forever be the most beautiful child of course, other than the Hardy Bunch, that I've ever seen. Next slide. And here is the power of that projector having a reading lesson. And the girls are leading the class in reading. Next slide. Thank you. And that the power of that projector is just life-changing in the classroom. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the project. And Dow is going to take over and talk a little bit about, and I think Stephanie is going to just put the pictures on auto rotate while Dow talks about some other parts of the project.
Is that a simple, like, PowerPoint projector kind of?
Yes. The one that we donate? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we actually had to go through and figure out which ones can work in the environment and so on. There's a lot of ambient light and so on. So we get into all these things about measuring lumens on projectors even and so on. But we've switched it up a little bit. I usually do more of the how and the what, and Jen's more of the strategic on the why and so on. But a little bit about the why for us. Jen went through the origin story, and that's sort of the first level of the why, right? That's how we got to know about Malawi and why we do it and the opportunity there. But if you're a parent and have kids that always say, but why? But why? Why is the sky blue? But why? And you try and explain. Or if you're an engineer and they teach you the 5 whys, if you want to get to a root cause of something or the root truth, you ask why 5 times or maybe 7 times or something. And you drill down every time and you learn a little bit more about it. And that's sort of the interesting thing for us is the why, or for me. And again, you get a lot of why Malawi? And there's a lot of implied questions, even when we're asking ourselves. Like I talk about this, other people asking it, but we ask ourselves why Malawi sometimes. And it's like, what's different or unique about Malawi? And again, the simpler answer is it's very under-resourced. The money goes further. Frankly, we can have more impact there. They don't have the existing technology. There's less regulation there. Like, we did a lot of work with the Ministry of Education, but there's a lot less regulation there than we would have to go through in the US and so on. And so that's a little bit more towards why. And then also why Malawi is like, that's a challenging location for you, right? It's a third of the way around the world and so on. And why do you do that? And I ask myself that a lot. And most of you probably know the JFK speech about the moon program, where he said, we choose to go to the moon, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And the quote itself always seemed a little disjointed to me. Like, why would you do something, if you could do something easy, why do the hard? You can get more accomplished there. But what he also says in it is, and found this quote, is because the goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. And that focus, like, we think about it all the time, and it's the challenge, and that really focuses us. And we really appreciate sort of the hard nature of it, and finally sort of understand what he was getting at the time. Also with the why Malawi, you get a little bit of why not closer to home? And again, I think about that myself. It's not projecting this on other people, and you go with the charity starts at home, and I definitely believe that. I think that that's very important. And even the cultural affinity, and I don't think that's always bad. I think that's good to believe in that. And again, maybe a little bit, you worry, is there a tiny bit of xenophobia there about it? Like, these people are different. Why aren't you taking care of your own? And I don't think anybody's that explicit about it and so on. But you always worry about that, or I always worry about that a little bit. Like, well, why is that something? And really, for me, the first response is, like, we want to impact students, and we want to impact teachers, and so on. And it doesn't matter where that student is, and it doesn't matter where that teacher is. And the reality is, they are all equal, obviously, as human beings. But it's not always equal in what they need or where they are at in their education. And trying to address that and learning that and why around that causes us to go deeper there. And we were talking before, like, for me, every trip that we take there drills down another level in the why. And it changes a little bit, the why. And in some ways, I can't tell you the why, or the why changes for me with every trip. The more we learn, the more we understand the culture. You talked about the colonialism. Malawi was an English colony until 1963, when they got their independence and so on. And when you first go there, you see remnants in some ways, but you don't see a lot of people railing against the colonialism. They're very warm and welcoming and so on. But as you go more, you see a little bit of that, or you learn a little bit more of that, and where they're still too much dependent on tobacco as their cash crop, maize as their nutrition crop, because that's what the colonial powers told them to do, and they're still stuck in that. So you learn more and more. You understand what Jen talked about with the joy and connectedness of the team and so on. And our team, sort of like our children in a way, and they always kid that the NGO calls them Dow and Jen's kids. But the team is wildly different. Like, at first you think of them, not all the same, but the more you get to know them, the more different they are, and what motivates each one of them. And the why there is very interesting to us. And then the why for us is also, like, what are we making an impact? Why or how are we making an impact and making a difference? And again, that changes with the trips, and we observe different things and so on. But we see the team's capabilities improving. They're now responding to RFPs that we're not involved in to do other IT work in the country. We help them with farming, but now they're evolving to be their own farmers and so on, and how they grow. At our schools, the biggest impact for me I see is the university admissions. Our head teachers will tell us their university admissions have gone up dramatically since the computers were introduced. And then the teacher capabilities and so on. So again, for me, I don't know in some ways the full answer of why, but I know it's fulfilling and it's making a difference. So.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add one little bit of the practical side of why Malawi. And so much nonprofit work gets lost in making a donation. And being able to be physically engaged in this work, I believe, has made our money go so much further because we oversee every penny and we witness exactly how it's working. So to have a village that we can go back to every year and spend 3 months a year at, and the humans that we interact with, is such an incredible leverage of, we can do so much because we have the relationships needed in order to have this direct impact. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Our closing hymn is 305, De Coloris. Please stand as you are willing and are able. The flowers, all the colors, the showers, all the colors, as the rainbow appears when a storm cloud is touched by the sun. All the colors are bound for the whole world, for everyone under the sun. Okay, here we go. All the colors, yes, the colors of people parading on by with their banners. All the colors, yes, the colors of pendants and streamers and plumes and bandanas. All the colors, yes, the colors of people now taking place in the sun. All the colors are bound with the whole world and with everyone under the sun. Third and last verse. All the colors, yes, the black and the white and the red and the brown and the yellow. All the colors of people who smile and shake, say hello. All the colors of people who know that their freedom is one. Colors are bound for the whole world around, everyone under the sun. We're not worthy of the Spanish, quite clearly. Our closing words come from Sherry Woodbury. She says, "Let us continue to grow as citizens of our communities, our nation, and our world." We just heard an example of that. "Let us work to build the common good for ourselves and the generations to come. May it be so." May it be so. Please join us for light coffee hour over in the Parish Hall. Thanks for being here.